Hello, my name is Ken Small. I'm with SSA Architecture in Las Vegas, Nevada. We have a lot of people ask about planning and master planning at SSA, and so I'm just going to do a quick video that explains what it is and how it works, and hopefully you'll give us a call and come by and find out more details. So the big difference between planning and master planning basically is that in planning you're going to be building it all at once, and in master planning you're going to be building it in multiple phases. So we're going to start out with planning because that's the simpler form and just talk about the simplest version of it. So right here we have a site plan that was sketched up. This happened to be for a tavern, which is a special use zoning category in Las Vegas. So you can see here the building and the parking lot, where the dumpster goes and all that. So we draw this preliminary plan to show the client what the highest and best use of the property is for what it is that they want to do. They could just take this drawing and analyze it to see if the economics work for them, and then if it does, we would take this drawing down and have a preliminary meeting with the government agencies in control and see what their take is on it. And then if that's okay, we go on to a drawing that looks like this, that's more formal, and we take that and use it for more formalized processes, like there may be a property owners association or a neighborhood association, city council, town board, stuff like that. And so that's a simple straight up planning project. Now the next one up from a simple straight up planning project is this one. This is a retail shopping center. This is the same shopping center here. There are two versions of it. So what's happening here is we have a lot of buildings, and in one version they mention that there's a specific brand name retail store there, and in the other one they don't. And these are the kind of evolutionary things that developers do when they're master planning a project, because if a big anchor store comes in, then they're going to dictate what goes on around them. So we start out drawing something like this that shows a lot of hypothetical, and then whoever's going to buy the anchor store makes a commitment. We come in here and we actually draw the footprint of their typical store plan on it. Things shift around a little bit, and then we can again have these additional locations where the real estate developer could approach somebody who wants to lease a space or buy a pad and say, hey, would you like to buy this? And so after those people make commitments, then we'll see further evolutions of this. So this is more of a live, moving master plan that really never does get finished, even after everything is fully sold or leased out. Tenants will, or property owners will sell, tenants will come and go, and normally you don't continue to evolve the drawing after the first one, but this is in the nature of what you would do to proceed through the process to get it built. So what are you looking at when you're master planning? Well, here we have a site. This is for an elementary school, and we went in and did some analysis on it. We looked at the main street and how the traffic flows. What were the issues with the outside of it? In this case, we said no community presence, poor community access. We identified all the buildings. So here's classroom building 5, classroom building 3, classroom building 4, corridor E. All this stuff is identified. This is the angle of the sun in the winter time and the angle of the sun in the summertime. And we talk about which way the breezes blow through in between these buildings to keep everybody comfortable. And then we've also looked at it in a 3D format here, which is not terribly valuable because this is a one-story building, but if it was a multi-story building, we would get some more value out of the 3D. So we take a look at this information and we try to figure out what it all means to us. Now, in the case of this particular project, before our involvement, there was a decision that some of these buildings were not worth keeping. They were too old and in too poor of a condition, and so we were trying to figure out where to go to from that. So we combined that with some educational facility planning and tried to figure out exactly which buildings were going to come and go and which buildings would be added. We'll talk about this a little bit more going forward. So now we've got another school site that's a little bit smaller than that one. This is a Sandy Valley School out in Sandy Valley, Nevada. We have an aerial photograph here showing the boundary of the school property and some existing buildings and some portable buildings that have been there permanently. And then we're looking over here at a preliminary design sketch that shows what we're thinking about possibly keeping and leaving, and the flow of students into the school and circulating around the school. So this is all existing. We're comparing existing with existing here. And then going over here to the next step, we were looking at some what-ifs. And in this case, we decided to have an access going up one side of the school, which is the east. And then you would have the existing portables on one side, a mechanical building here, existing administration, existing multi-purpose, and then these two middle school buildings added. And so if you're doing things in multiple steps, this enables you to not get yourself painted into a corner. So one of my favorite examples of that is if you've ever been to the Winchester House in California, you know they have staircases that go nowhere, you know that they have corridors that go nowhere, doors that go nowhere, and this is what happens if you don't do master planning. You get yourself painted into a corner and you find out there's no solution to the problem that you're in. So the most cost-effective use of your money is to plan before you get to the architectural part. What building am I going to add now? How am I going to use it? What building am I going to add next? And how am I going to use it from there? So now we're going to go back to the site plan that we looked at earlier with all the existing conditions on it and talk a little bit about development of the site plan and how we do master planning from an educational project standpoint, although the situation is similar with commercial projects also. First of all, we try to draw these relationship diagrams that show how things fit together. So these relationships down here on this lower diagram are kind of perfect world type relationships that you would prefer to have if you had a choice. So here you see what's called a great room, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 classrooms around the outside of it, and then it has 2 storage rooms. So that's ideally what you would like to get. And then the same thing for 2 of them side by side with a circulation corridor in between. And this gives you an example of how that lays out in the real world with real rooms. But the reality of it is we're working with some existing buildings here. So we've got to shoehorn that into these buildings and some additions that we're going to make. So you can see here the theoretical perfect world at a bigger scale. So this is a piece of that. And then here we have scheme 1, which is different adjacencies with keeping different buildings. Scheme 2, which is different adjacencies of different buildings. And scheme 3, again, different adjacencies and keeping some and throwing away different buildings. So just looking at this for a minute, parking lot on the street side, a play area on the non-street side, a bus drop-off between the play area and the street side, classrooms, special programs, multi-purpose rooms, the administration, the library, and the kindergarten play area up at the top there is what we thought in a perfect world you would be doing if you had a clean sheet of paper. And then now we've adapted this, so you can see we're using the different colors to describe what are new and existing buildings. And we have some square footage calculations here. This is all done in sort of a freehand sketch format, like the piece of yellow paper that I showed you right at the beginning of this tape. And then in the end, it came down to the client picked a combination of some of these after saying this is good from this part and that's good of that part. So we would take these and turn them into a final bubble diagram. And so when you're doing that, you're looking at the dollars and you're looking at the square feet of something that's going to be developed. Now in this case, even though the original buildings had been built in multiple steps, the modification that we were about to do was going to be a one-step modification. So it was really just a one-step process for us in planning, but we also allowed in the smaller scale of the planning process for some expansion in the future. So here you see John S. Park Elementary School master plan that we did in 2004. And again, a similar situation. They had these existing classroom buildings. There was an old administration building here in the corner and another building that they were using as a multi-purpose building. And so the existing buildings to remain we show in brown. The red building is a new administration building. This red building is new multi-purpose, new administration and new library. And then this is a renovated building in the blue. So through master planning, we were able to figure out how we were going to do this. This is a little bit more complicated because this was all not really built simultaneously or planned to be built simultaneously. And so they were going to move out of the old administration building and then move here and move there as they went throughout the campus to be able to still keep the school in operation while they were adding these various buildings. But nevertheless, this was the ultimate plan at that time for that school, going from where they were to where they wanted to be, keeping some buildings and getting rid of others. Here we have another sample project, the Will Beckley Elementary School. It has an existing building here and another existing building there, multi-purpose building there. This is their parking lot and their street and asphalt playground area, baseball diamonds, and so on. Again, we planned this one and determined that the best thing to do was to remodel the core of the school here and the multi-purpose building room, and also to extend the parking area in front. So sometimes a decision when you're master planning doesn't end up being that you have to add a new building. You just find a section of the building that's not being ideally utilized, or maybe it's just way outdated and doesn't work for you anymore and you decide to overhaul that. So this is a floor plan. I've got it rotated here so that it has the same orientation. This is the street here as the site plan does. I'm going to turn it so that you can look at it and see what I'm talking about here. But again, this blue section throughout the middle of the building is sort of the services for the classrooms. So on the upper section here, you can see all classrooms there, not significantly modified from the original condition, and then another bank of classrooms on the bottom side. And then this whole blue section in the middle here was basically gutted and redone to make it more modern and to function better for the school. So we have administrative offices and the health room and the teacher's lounge and workroom, and then this nice new library that we redid with the associated rooms, the library office and the media room, and then a couple of extra offices here in the back. And then the multi-purpose room was completely overhauled, as was the associated food preparation with it. So you can see from looking at this that sometimes when you're doing a master planning project, the determination is that you don't need to add another building, that you can take a part of the building that was underutilized or not modern enough to work for you anymore and go in and gut it, modernize it, and then leave the majority of the building as it is so that it'll work for you without having to build a whole new building. So there can be a lot of utility in doing something like that. It isn't just the utility in trying to save, not painting yourself into a corner. But anyway, if you haven't been out to the Winchester House in California, you should go, and then you'll know exactly why planning is a good idea. My name is Ken Small, and I'm with SSA Architecture in Las Vegas, Nevada, and our phone number is 702-873-1718.